Welcome back to the Pirate Ragnar channel. My name is Alistair, and it has been a frustrating couple of weeks. I'm sure this happens to everybody who decides that they want to play mechanic when they have absolutely no experience being a mechanic and work on things that are, several years older than themselves. Several things have come up in the last-ditch effort to get Mauls ready for the ICBC Skills Test, and although technically Mauls is actually good to go, everything has been resolved. She's running beautifully. The only thing really that I have left to do is I'm worried that we're going to get there. You know, the indicators work perfectly, the horn works, the brake lights work, all that stuff works perfectly, but the LED light that I have is kind of flickering a little bit. And the last thing I want to do is show up to this test, which will take months and months to rebook, and have the instructor there say it doesn't pass whatever safety requirements he has because there's a little bit of a flicker to the headlight. For my own peace of mind, what I'm going to do is just replace it with one of the traditional bulbs. So I have two. I just need to double check that they both work, and if they both work, then I'm just going to use the one that's already inside the housing here. And we're just going to pull off the old light, replace it with this one. Barking at the neighbors. What are you even doing that for, crazy man? Huh? Okay, go lay down. So with everything, as I was saying, with everything else working perfectly right now, I just want to replace the headlight and then tape up the rest of the wiring harness at the front there. And in the meantime, while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and bring you guys up to the editing room. We can go through the literal hours and hours and hours of footage, and I will not put you guys through all of that and explain the roller coaster ride that I've been through in trying to get Mauls ready. This episode is going to deal primarily with the master cylinder, the front brake caliper, and then just patching the exhaust. And we will end it with showing you the unexpected, although it should have been expected, one more thing that came up before I actually got Mauls in running order. I'll catch up with you guys after I go ahead and replace this. See you then. If this week had gone the way it was supposed to, it would have been simple. Attach the one-way valve to the bleeder, reattach the brake reservoir and the master cylinder, fill it with brake fluid, pump it all out, easy peasy lemon squeezy. But that's not what happened. So I reattached the original master cylinder to the handlebars, and then reattached the brake line after replacing the reservoir. I went ahead and filled up the brake reservoir, and I started pumping. And as you can see, some bubbles, that's usually a good sign. So I proceeded to work the brake for quite a while, with no luck. So there's some kind of issue. I've confirmed that the master cylinder does produce pressure, but for some reason it's not pulling anything from the reservoir down through the master cylinder and putting it into the hose. Let's just say it does produce some pressure, but not nearly enough to refill the brake line and caliper. I proceeded to detach the brake line to double check and confirm that although it produces both positive and negative pressure when capped with my thumb, it did not spit out brake fluid like one would expect. I assumed that there was some old debris clogging the intake at the bottom of the reservoir. Seems like a simple enough idea, apart from having to dump out all of the brake fluid and remove the reservoir again. So, it's another day now. I bashed my head against the wall a little bit too long regarding the front brake, and I think I just need to order a new master cylinder and brake lever. I'd love to rebuild, and I will rebuild the original, but I know that that rebuild kit is just going to take far too long to get in. I need to know that the brake is going to be rebuilt and functioning, and I also have concerns now about the caliper. At this point, I'm realizing that ordering a replacement generic master cylinder is probably my best bet over the short term, provided I can find one with the same diameter banjo bolt, so the brake line will hook up to it no problem. I've also noticed that the gaskets on Mauls' caliper are pushing themselves out, which is never a great sign. The rabbit hole that has been the front brake only deepens. Being a stubborn idiot, I reconfirmed that there is some pressure being built. So there is some pressure there. The problem is that it doesn't pump fluid. If I have this reservoir full of fluid and then I sit there and pump it, it's not going to have brake fluid actually come out of where it needs to come out. So it makes me think that I can pull it apart, clean it up, and be safe to get it working. After remembering to put gloves on like I tell everyone else to do, I then proceeded to take it apart, clean the whole thing. It is worth noting that the smaller of the two holes in the master cylinder for feeding the brake fluid back and forth was certainly clogged. So this, again, led me to believe I was on the right track. Oh, belief, you fickle bitch. Everything cleaned up nicely, aside from breaking off a little rubber nipple on the back of the plunger seal, so I then needed to tear down the second 450 master cylinder that I had laying around, which was in much worse condition, and hope that I could retrieve the seal in a decent shape with that rubber intact. Several hours later, and a few more sprays of cleaner than I should have ever used indoors, which, don't tell Chelsea, I did just that. Well, this does not look as clean as it could be. Too bad, it really was a waste of time. And luckily, I'd ordered a replacement in the meantime. On to the caliper. So this is Mauls' original caliper. And as you can tell, some of these gaskets are coming out. It's obviously not in the best of condition. It's seen better days, yes. This is a replacement that is very, very dirty, but from what I can see, the gaskets are still in place. So I have to try and compress this one a little bit, or at least compress it enough that we can get the brake pads out, which actually it might be compressed enough for that, but these are theoretically not good brake pads, so we're going to use it, since I don't have a piece of wood skinny enough to get in there, and see if we can compress the pistons a little bit inside the caliper, and then hopefully maybe we can use this caliper in place of this one, because I'm not holding out much hope that that's going to keep the fluid back, as it were. That's where we're going to start first. I got to put this guy back in since I was in the middle of taking it out. There we go. It's effectively back in-ish. And now we can get some kind of pry bar and see about compressing those pistons a little bit, since we don't have to actually worry about these brake pads. The brake pads that were on Mauls most recently are still in relatively good condition, and we'll reuse those. So once we have a caliper that we're relatively confident will work, we can go ahead and throw it onto the bike, hook up the new brake reservoir and master cylinder, put the brake line on it, and again, the brake line that I want to use is out there. We've already blown it out with air and know that there's nothing kind of hiding inside, nothing that's going to clog it. With any luck, have working front brakes by the end of this video. So let's give it a go. After much talking to the camera, I actually got back to work. I took the old brake line off of the second caliper, since we'll be using the brake line that's in place on Mauls. We know it's been cleaned out pretty well, because a bunch of compressed air has gone through it, and that just makes me think I know what I'm doing. The second caliper is lacking a bleeder valve, so I stole that from the original as well, followed by the bolts that will hold the caliper in place. Next came replacing the brake pads from the original caliper into the second one. I then realized I forgot the brake pad clip, so needed to grab that from outside. Here I'm replacing the caliper, then attaching the new master cylinder, and replacing the brake line. Finally, filling the reservoir with brake fluid. I think we've been here before. Then we get a shot of another rather satisfying, though clearly not conclusive, bubbles from the brake line. This next part, without a vacuum pump, takes ages, so I'll save you all something rather similar to watching paint dry and skip to where the line and caliper are being refilled with fluid. Finally, the one-way valve gets to do its job and spits out the last of the cloudy, old brake fluid from the caliper. In no time at all, we are now flowing almost perfectly clear fluid and know the entire system has been flushed correctly. One of the remaining items I needed to get done and had forgotten was to rewire the custom dash. I'd put it together several years ago. The digital tack wasn't working correctly, and for the time being, I only needed one working switch, so it took a few minutes to get that sorted. Next comes the exhaust patch. Easy enough job in principle, but not in practice, because this hole wasn't located in an easy to get to place. With the electric drill and some copper wire attachments, it made easy work of cleaning it up. Mix up the putty, lots of swearing later, it's all figured out. Follow that up with a rather quick and nearly painless reinstallation of the custom dash and speedo. Just need to let that exhaust patch sit for 3 to 4 hours to cure, then get Mauls booted up, run for about 10 minutes to slowly heat up the patch, and we are good to go. And if that was the end of the problems, this just wouldn't be the Pirate Ragnar channel, now would it? So got everything running out there. Ran it for 8, almost 10 minutes before I realized that I had not turned the gas on in the fuel tank again. The moment I turned the petcock back on, it just started hemorrhaging gas somewhere between the two carbs, so I can't see it. It's either in the side of one of the carbs, in the spot that feeds fuel between them, or that sucks. I have another set of carbs, but they're completely untested for a CB 450. Oh boy. Well, after only the slightest amount of swearing, the new headlight is on there. All the electronics seem to be working properly. Brake light, horn, indicators, the whole kit and caboodle. So, what do you think, Dex? Is it going to pass muster when we get to the test? I think so. Thank you for sitting through the rather painful experience of getting the front brake and the caliper and the exhaust sorted out. Stay tuned next episode, though, for the carb issue. What do we say, Dex? If they like the stuff that they're seeing, they can hit like, subscribe, comment below. All that kind of stuff helps the algorithm. I really appreciate it. Until next time, ride safe and ride fun, and we'll see you on the next video. Let's go for a walk.